Kaiji Ultimate Survivor is legitimately one of my favorite anime in the gambling subgenre, which is bigger than you would think. I was first introduced to it by an amazing content creator called Super Eye Patch Wolf, and his video about why I should watch Kaiji was completely correct. If you see this video and then the movie and want more like it, then go watch that video and let him sell you the anime better than I could ever hope to. It's hard to describe how incredible Kaiji is, but here's my elevator pitch. Kaiji Ultimate Survivor is the story of a Japanese man named Kaiji who can't ever seem to catch a break. He hops from bad job to bad job, barely making any money and often drinking away what he does. When his debt becomes overwhelming, he's entered into a world of ultra high stakes gambling to pay it off. It's easy to assume that this would just be a bunch of life or death games with a life-changing amount of money at the end, and sometimes it is, but it's the games where there's far more terrifying things than death on the line that really make the series. The one that has been forever burned into my brain is the game Kaiji plays against a rich man where the wager isn't money, but his hearing. Kaiji doesn't have the money to challenge someone with actual wealth and status, but he does have a body and a spirit that they love to break. So he plays a dangerous game with a device strapped to his head, and each time he loses, the device drills into his ear, approaching his eardrum and possibly deafening him forever. Now, the reason that not all of the games can be life or death is that Kaiji does on occasion lose and receives terrible punishments when he does, which does serve to keep the tension high. So, what about the actual life or death games? Well, the stakes there become emotional. A lot of people Kaiji plays with are just like him, down on their luck losers who have made too many bad decisions or gambled more than they could afford and ended up on the wrong side of the rich. And Kaiji wants them to survive as much as he wants to survive himself, because he believes that they can still turn their lives around. This is what makes it so painful when so many of them lose their lives in the pursuit of another chance. Anyone who sees the shot of Kaiji standing alone on a high beam and knows what led to it will also know exactly how masterful the setup and execution of Kaiji losing a friend can be. Kaiji the Ultimate Gambler is the first in a trilogy based on the events of the manga, following the same premise of a man down on his luck and lashing out at the wealthy, falling both into massive debt and a world of criminal wealth and inhuman cruelty. He's forced to play games against his fellow debtors, nature itself, and his rich overseers in a desperate attempt to reclaim his life, but is also determined not to become like the callous and cruel monsters that run the games. Kaiji is played perfectly by Tatsuya Fujiwara, who most people remember from Battle Royale or his time as Light Yagami in the original Death Note movies. The score is a massive high point of this movie, managing to control my emotions even though I knew a lot of what was coming. And the whole movie does great at setting up these emotions. I remember feeling so much pain and sadness when Kaiji overlooks a basic fact at the end of one game. The joy when he outplays an opponent, and even genuine surprise when I thought I had figured out Kaiji's play, then figured out the whole plan as the character did in the movie. I cannot recommend Kaiji the Ultimate Gambler enough. It's a strong introduction to the series and hopefully convinces a lot of people to watch the rest. Now that I'm done gushing about it, let's look at the movie. We start with a weirdly foreboding scene. A group of people, all seemingly wealthy businessmen, sit before an old man asking what is most important in the world, which obviously is money. But more than that, the money can be used to build an underground bunker, a separate country that they call a kingdom for the obscenely wealthy. And one man comments that they'll never need to worry about labor in their kingdom, since there's always naive and desperate people looking for work. Enter Kaiji, who we get to meet as he comes close to winning on a scratch ticket, but just misses out on the jackpot. He then proceeds to waste his day away as a clerk at a small market before making his way back home, passing by a rich couple who accuse him of staring at the woman's chest before driving off in their fancy car. This is what finally pushes Kaiji over the edge. He proceeds to yell at the couple driving off in anger and then takes out his frustration on a series of Mercedes cars parked on the road. His expression as he vents his anger at the rich and the cars is incredibly charming and made me laugh as he continued yelling at cars as though they were their owners, until he kicks one car and makes a visible dent in the door, prompting a man in a dark suit to ask why he did that, before revealing several more men around them. Kaiji attempts to flee, but is easily run down and confronted by a well-dressed lady who looks like a loan shark. She informs him that a former core worker took out a loan, which Kaiji co-signed, and then dipped, leaving Kaiji with the bag. With interest, he currently owes a little over 2 million yen. When he says that he can't pay her, she offers him a lifeline. There is a gambling cruise going on tonight, and if he manages to win, then his debt will be cleared. He seems hesitant, but she points out that he's achieved nothing, has nobody, and is getting older, so soon he'll be dead. But this is the chance for him to change his life, a phrase that he'll cling to going forward. Once he gets on the boat and sees all the others he'll be playing with, they're all told that they'll receive a badge with stars on it, and a set of cards. The stars are worth 1 million for the set, with an interest rate of 1% per minute. Once the player is done with their game, they will buy the stars back at 1 million yen each, on top of wiping their debt, which should set them up for life. The cards are revealed to be rock, paper, scissors cards. The rules are easy enough. You both pick a card, play rock, paper, scissors. The winner gets one of the loser's stars, and then you discard the cards that were used. The time limit is 30 minutes, and you have to use all 12 of your cards and have 3 stars in order to win. So, the big question, what happens when they lose? Sorry, can't answer that. As the host tells them, expecting answers and assuming they are human beings with rights is what made them losers. There's no point in knowing what happens if you lose because they should want to win. They have to win. The game begins and immediately devolves into insanity with people playing all over. In less than 2 minutes, one person already loses everything and is taken to a back room where a scream is heard and then silence. Left to ponder their fate, another player approaches Kaiji with a plan. Since they only need the 3 stars they started with and really just need to burn their cards, if they agree to draw 12 games in a row and hold on to their stars, then they both walk away winners. This is actually a valid plan and works in practice. And as Kaiji mentally celebrates this fact, his partner Funai accidentally makes a mistake and costs Kaiji a star. They plan to resolve it the next round, but the same thing happens again, putting Kaiji down to 1, and Funai reveals his trick before leaving to burn his last card. Kaiji doesn't take this betrayal well and attacks Funai before being told to settle down and witnessing exactly what kind of hell they're in. Before the whole thing can devolve into chaos, security interjects to reveal a man who tried to flush his cards down the toilet. And using that moment of calm, Funai proposes a shuffle. Everyone puts their cards together, shuffle them, and deal out however many they had. Weirdly, everyone agrees to this, while Kaiji offers to help the desperate man who tried to flush his. Funai offers to play Kaiji for his last star, but Kaiji raises the stakes by betting his star and the desperate man's, 3-3. When they play, Funai reveals that he had a rock and knows that Kaiji has scissors because Kaiji's card had blood on it from when he hit Funai. Kaiji, however, reveals paper and tells him that he knew his card was marked, so he cleaned it and marked the desperate man's card instead to bait Funai, which he took hook, line, and sinker. Funai's greed cost him everything. If he had played anyone else, then he would have walked out with 4 stars at least, but instead loses with 2. Kaiji and the old man then proceed to burn his deck, playing each other to a full draw. The 2 of them are free, until he realizes there was another card in his pocket and no more time to play it. Before we continue on, I want to say that someone took this idea and made a really interesting movie about it called Animal World, entirely about people playing an incredibly high stakes game of rock, paper, scissors for millions. I might do a video on it someday, but back on topic, in Kaiji, we join him working in an underground slave camp, building the kingdom they refer to at the beginning. How did he get there when he was free? Well, in a flashback, it's revealed that he offered himself to go with the old man, proclaiming that they had lost together. His compassion sometimes reaches absurd levels. It's down here that Kaiji is paid in a made-up currency called Perica, which has a similar exchange rate to bison dollars, and he makes about $3.50 per day. Every month, on payday coincidentally, the workers are also given access to a special store where they can buy snacks and, of course, beer. At the cost of $5, about a day and a half of work, Kaiji resists primarily, but is given a free one by his manager, and after indulging in it, he finds it hard to resist getting more. If you've ever been on a diet or exercise routine and skipped a single day or cheated once, then you know how easy it is to convince yourself that it's okay to do it again. Kaiji quickly blows through most of his pay. A tunnel collapse soon after forces Kaiji to carry his friend to the infirmary, where it's revealed that they're being charged for their treatment. They have to work to pay to get well enough to continue working to pay off their debt. It's a damning perspective on the state of the working class, but Kaiji also learns about a challenge called the Brave Men's Road, the only path out of this hellhole. The next payday, when Kaiji tries to confront not only the manager for swindling them, but all of the workers for being losers, seemingly content in this cycle of suffering, he ends up volunteering for the Brave Men's Road. Brave Men's Road is an incredibly dangerous walk across a beam in between two buildings. It's a height that absolutely nobody could survive falling from, but Kaiji has a plan. He draws a line on the center of everyone's shoe that they can align with the center line of the beam to keep them balanced, and rallies them to compete together. What follows is an incredibly quiet and tense game. None of them are competing this time. There's no trick or betrayal to help them. They all want to survive, and Kaiji holds to his goal of turning his life around. Unfortunately, life is not amenable to a person's will, and fate has a habit of punishing the innocent. When a storm begins forming on the horizon, the players begin panicking, reacting to wind that isn't there, and one player falls to his demise. His failure, coupled with the approaching storm, spreads further panic among the players, and they begin to fall one by one, as the rich observers laugh and applaud their failures, and ultimately their death. In seemingly no time at all that is left is Kaiji, Sahara, and the desperate man from the first game. Sahara stands alone on his beam, punishing himself and forcing himself forward to achieve a new future. And Kaiji tries to follow, but the desperate man knows full well that this is the end for him. He tells Kaiji that this was never for him. He had no interest in turning his life around, but rather he did this all for his daughter, who had suffered for his debt. Kaiji tells him that he has to keep going, that his life means something, because there is no such thing as a worthless life, only to turn around and find nothing. In order to save Kaiji from distress, the man who played this game to try to save his daughter from his mistakes, the man who knew only fear and weakness, had fallen in complete silence. This scene always makes me cry. Even just remembering it in the manga and the anime, this scene always breaks me because I'm very much a weak person who tries to do more than I can handle for other people. And the fact that not only did he do this for his daughter, but died in silence for Kaiji hits me deep in the heart. Kaiji also takes this to heart as he and Sahara manage to make it across Brave Men's Road and have finally managed to turn their lives around. Again, nature is often quick to punish the innocent. Sahara opens the window to enter the building, and the force of the blast of wind behind the window from the difference in air pressure knocks him off the ledge, leaving only Kaiji, the ultimate survivor, to win. Kaiji, after all the debt he owes, is left with roughly $7,000 American, which he accepts without issue, but when he tries to claim the man's winnings to save his daughter, they refuse to pay him. This leads Kaiji to one more game, E-Card. Each player has 5 cards. One has 4 citizens and a lord, and the other has 4 citizens and a slave. Citizen v citizen is a draw. Citizen v slave is a win for the citizen. However, a lord versus citizen is a win for the lord, but a slave versus a lord is a win for the slave. The slave deck must also pick their card first, making this game heavily favored towards the lord since they have a card that only loses if it's played against a slave. If the slave deck plays a citizen first and the lord plays its lord, then they automatically win that. Draw 3 more and win another. Why would you play the slave deck then? Well, it pays out 10-1, so winning with it can be life-changing. The game begins with several draws until Kaiji plays his slave and is easily defeated. When the rich man attempts to gloat over Kaiji, the emperor chucks a glass at his head and loans Kaiji money to keep playing. Kaiji wants to gamble it all on the first card, but notices that his opponent's looking at something unrelated to the game that they're playing. Before he can determine what though, he plays his slave and is again immediately trounced. I want to take a quick second while Kaiji figures out the trick to this game to comment that I think this is really well done and adapted wonderfully. It really is unfortunate that the adaptation removed the device that drove into Kaiji's ear every time that he lost. It was probably done for practical reasons and because it wouldn't be as impactful with the time that the game is given in the film, but still, I miss it. Kaiji does eventually figure out how they knew what card he was playing and even gets an idea on how to win. He just needs a loan from the loan shark, which he gets when he explains his plan. Kaiji's plan is apparently to absolutely lose his shit, proceeding to smash his head against a mirror, while the chairman delivers a monologue about living recklessly instead of playing it safe and never risking anything, which seems to work since Kaiji knocking himself around has driven up his heart, making it impossible for his opponent to read his vitals, which is how he was cheating earlier. However, In his exuberance, Kaiji splatters his blood all over his cards, which he does attempt to wipe off before beginning the game. It creates a striking visual, Kaiji covered in blood against a well-groomed businessman. The first round goes to a draw, but during the second round he notices a bloodstain on a card that's played. And since he knows that only the citizen and the slave had blood on them, this is a 50-50 shot. If it's a citizen, then he'll know the other is a slave. They play the round and it was a citizen, securing that the other must be a slave. This is where I thought the twist was obvious. By using the trick he was beaten with in the first game, as well as the trick he used to win the first, palming a card on the table and faking a bloodstain on it, he could pretend a citizen was a slave and bait the final citizen card before forcing a slave versus lord in the final round. It's a trick fitting of Kaiji and a nice callback to where he started versus where he's come. In an incredibly paranoid train of thought, befitting a character whose whole career is games like this, his opponent determines the exact same thing, since he's seen all of Kaiji's games. However, Kaiji played this game exactly straight. He didn't palm anything, he didn't fake anything. With his own ingenuity and boldness, Kaiji outplayed him, and reveals the slave in a grand display. He explains that he entirely took advantage of his opponent's paranoia, and his supposition that Kaiji is trash and useless because he has no money. But because he was looked down on, Kaiji was able to defeat a lord. Tonegawa, who's the person he's playing against, I never said his name, is sentenced to spend his life underground, while Kaiji celebrates his win with the loan shark who... Look, I try to be respectful of all women, but if this is what a 39-year-old Japanese lady looks like, then damn, she can get it. And get it she does, drugging Kaiji's drink and stealing his 500 million. Well, most of it, leaving him with about 500,000 yen or $5,000 American. I should feel bad or something, but I cannot help but have the widest grin on my face during this scene, because Kaiji will never stop trying to turn his life around. And more often than not, the world will step on him, but he won't let that change him. This is made evident when Kaiji not only delivers his remaining money to the desperate man's daughter, but also delivers his ticket to her, which should allow her to claim his money and pay off the debts. With this last act of kindness, we go to credits. Kaiji the Ultimate Gambler is a wonderful adaptation of the first arc of the Kaiji series, and a great film on its own. Some people might feel bad that Kaiji ended up shafted again after it all, but that's unfortunately his lot in life. More than the ultimate gambler, Kaiji is the ultimate survivor. No matter what they do to try to kick him down, he'll never stop trying to turn his life around, and he never lets himself lose his compassion in pursuit of money. Again, if this movie sounds like something up your alley, it's easy to find on the Google machine, and there's an incredible anime adaptation as well. And if you've seen the movie and want to know what more there is, please go watch Super Eye Patch Wolf's video about why you should watch Kaiji. This is the first of a trilogy, and I look forward to what the other two have in store. Please wait for me. I love you all. Good night.